Now remember, loserthink doesn't mean that the people who are doing it are losers. Nothing like that. I'm saying that as a method of understanding your world, it takes you down an unproductive path. It's a losing path. What do you think of this story that Hillary Clinton's email server, there were a bunch of improprieties by a bunch of people, but none of it raises to the level of, illegality, I guess. So there won't be any legal anything for Hillary Clinton based on her email server. Now, let's all check our predictions. What was your prediction about the outcome of the Hillary Clinton email situation once you knew that Republicans were going to be looking into it? All right, so remember, it's not Hillary's own insider team that was looking into it. It was Republicans and Democrats too. But what did you think was going to be the outcome? Well, I'll tell you what my prediction was. Does anybody remember what my prediction was for the emails? No big deal. That was my prediction. My prediction was, it's no big deal. It'll never turn into anything because there isn't enough there. There are some things that shouldn't have been done the way they were done, but there just isn't enough there that it'll ever become illegal. Now, was that your prediction? Because one of the things I recommend in Loserthink is that you track your predictions, even if you didn't make them in public, as I did. Track how many times you're right and how many times you're wrong. Because if you find out that your predictions are consistently wrong, maybe do something differently. I would say that this is the situation in which my prediction was exactly right. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. People did some things. There were some things categorized wrong, but not much there. Just nothing there. Steven Crowder, YouTube personality. I don't know what to call him, but he's got a YouTube show with a lot of followers. And he claims that he has discovered that Google is restricting searches for Tulsi Gabbard, but only in the United States. So apparently, if you search in Europe, you get lots of results. If you search in the United States, you get fewer. Here's my problem with that. I do not for a moment doubt that the allegation is true. But is that the only way this could happen? And the answer is maybe not. This is one of those situations where the other explanation could fall into that big gray category of things you couldn't have imagined, things you never thought of, things that are caused by other things you didn't know were things. So to avoid loserthink, always remind yourself that the most likely explanation for an event you can't explain is something you hadn't thought of. It's just something beyond your experience, but it's not that unusual. By the way, if you have not ordered my book, Loserthink, it's available now for pre-order, and it would help me a lot if you did that. Here's another interesting case of Loserthink. There's an article about California trying to deal with the, quote, homelessness problem, which, as you probably know, is not really a homeless problem. It's only something that people who are in a bubble believe is a homeless problem. It is primarily a drug problem, drug addiction problem, and a mental health problem. California is, of course, working on the wrong problem because they're locked in. They're in this little bubble right here. They're in a little bubble where they don't have access, apparently, to information that would tell them they're working on the wrong problem. But here's a little bit from this article that I want to call out as Loserthink. So the writer of this article, doesn't matter who, said, if rent control helps reduce homelessness, why is the problem so prevalent in the very cities that already have it? So this person is saying, wait a minute, there is rent control in the very cities that don't have adequate housing. So how is San Francisco going to help their problem by rent control? Because the places that have rent control still have the problem. So it's pretty obvious that rent control does not solve the problem. What's wrong with that thinking? Why is it that there's rent control where there's also a lot of homelessness? Well, because if you have a lot of homelessness, you do what California did. You say, we got to do something. We don't have any good ideas. Let's try rent control. So, of course, wherever there's a problem, it will be paired with what somebody thinks is a solution. That doesn't mean it didn't work. It only means that they are often paired together. It is not legitimate to say that rent control doesn't work because there's lots of homelessness wherever they have it. That's not the right cause and effect, because it's probably the opposite. Probably there's lots of homeless, so we need some rent control. Even if it's a bad idea, you're going to do it anyway, probably.